Hi, everyone. My name is Kirsa Sabadir, and I am the chair for the Young Feminist Task Force here in Maryland now.
Everyone, my name is Ria Seth, and I'm a member of the Young Feminist Task Force, and I'm the head of Maryland Now's Girl and Women in Sports Task Force.
Hi, my name is Audrey Holzrichter. I'm the communications chair for Maryland Now, and I'm also a member of the Young Feminist Task Force.
We're bringing to you an interview with Kolieka Seigle. She's an intersectional feminist committed to political action, advocacy, and civic engagement. She's spent the bulk of her career seeking to promote democratic participation in underrepresented minorities and improve conditions in communities of color. She currently serves as the president of the California National Organization for Women and is the first African American to serve in that role. She's also the executive director of California Now Foundation and the chair of California Now's Political Action Committee. Additionally, Kolieka co-chairs the Now Global Feminist Committee and serves on the Now Racial Justice Task Force.
Kolieka, thank you so much for being here today. We're so excited to hear your keynote speech at our upcoming state conference, and we couldn't be more excited to have this conversation with you. So I'll start by asking the first question. Was there a particular event or moment in your life that really led to you becoming a feminist activist? And then building on that further, when were you first introduced to the concept of intersectionality?
I have been a feminist my whole life. As a Black woman, the personal is political. So I was always a feminist. I was always in fierce support of women and girls. I was so happy to be introduced to Now in college, back at Berkeley. And that was my pathway on this journey to becoming California Now president, was at Berkeley Now. So much activism around so many topics. I was always an intersectional feminist. That's a fun fact, always, because there were so many things about the traditional agenda of Now that kind of lacked support for all sides of me. So in California, we talk about the whole woman, and that's the way that I like to explain intersectionality. So I would come to events, but they were focused really on middle class, maybe white issues. Mondays, I would meet with the Now group. I was a woman. On Tuesdays, I'd meet with the Black activists. I was Black. On Wednesdays, I cared about the environment for climate change. And we should have all been meeting together. And that really is intersectionality wrapped up. So now that I work in policy, intersectionality is imperative to policy change, that we have to be passing policies that center the most marginalized. And if your feminism does not include intersectionality, is not intersectional, it is bullshit. And I have to say that very directly.
That's amazing. So I know that you mentioned that you joined Now at Berkeley. So can you elaborate on how you initially joined it and what your journey was like in becoming the president of the California chapter, and if there were any challenges that you faced along there?
Very good question. I was a part of, I started off really focused on eradicating violence and discussing issues of sexual assault. So I was in a program called SHAPE. So I was an advocate and mentor and facilitator for all kinds of issues surrounding women. And that program was hosted in the Gender Equity Center. So I come in the Gender Equity Center and there's this huge round about Now. And some of the administrators had let me know that they did have a chapter on campus. I decided to join up and attend. And I've been on this pathway, ever since. It's been 12 years now on this path. Ever since. So then when I had moved back to Sacramento, I had started getting affiliated with the state because I think Now struggles with the connection sometimes between the state and local chapters. So I really wanted to just kind of get more involved and met some incredible leaders, and they really wanted to recruit women of color to take leadership, and I was ready to do that. So I've done almost all the positions now. I started off off as VP membership and moved into programs. I think the one thing that I didn't do maybe was outreach. So I did the VP roles and then VP action, and then moved into the presidency when the former president had resigned. So that was kind of my pathway. And I will tell you this, that it does not come without challenges. It's going to become a struggle for young women of color that are passionate to find themselves in a traditional organization and then to lead. So I talk about this a lot, that to the membership, when they are thinking about how to become more intersectional and intergenerational, that it is not a race, it is a relay, okay? That when you pass the baton, we are carrying the water. That is what we're doing, we're carrying the water. So really advocating for that message took some time, and it didn't come without pushback, but that's where I like to stay focused. It's not a race, but a relay.
So my next question will really tie into that. How do you use your lived experiences as a woman of color in your activism?
That's a daily task. Some days are better than others. Some days when I'm looking at the murders of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, and I put both feet into police brutality, now really gives me pause if they are not focused on those intersectional issues. I've had people say in meetings, in talking about things like racial injustice, police brutality, etc., how is this a woman's issue? I've had people say that, and it has definitely given me pause, because these are my lived experiences, and these are experiences that affect communities of color. And I think that when I think about the role and now, it's hard to show up as a whole woman some days, but that's what I bring to the table. And I think that that's one of the beautiful things about having such a diverse group and a diverse base, is that you bring in so many issues to the table, and it makes for a richer experience. And so that's what I do day by day to bring that to the table. So those wouldn't have been addressed the way they are addressed now within Now without women of color showing up to the table. Things like Black maternal health, reproductive justice, which is created by women of color, as opposed to the traditional abortion rights, also would show up here in these areas. Traditional abortion rights really, really, really is about choice, really exclusively. Reproductive justice falls more into access. You can have all the choices you want, but if you cannot access these services, we're still living in the 1930s.
So I know that you talked about how women of color showing up has really driven some activist organizations to improve and to strengthen and to like increase the broad range of issues that they try to cover. So how do you think that feminist organizations can continue to represent and fight for the most marginalized members of our communities?
Well, I think that the first thing, traditional organizations like Now, okay, with older membership base, a wider base, need to first do is listen. That's the first thing that we have to do. We need to listen. We need to listen to youth. We need to listen to folks of color. We need to listen to our LGBTQ friends. We need to be listening, because when we listen, we really can get to the heart of the issue, and then it can kind of chart the path forward where you want to go. So they shouldn't be working unsupervised. That's first of all. Also, I think that Now really needs to move in the direction of support for other organizations that are already doing the work. So sometimes we are not the best person to lead, and we have to understand that, to kind of take a step back and allow the youth to lead on particular issues, allow the voices of color to come forward. We can allow the other marginalized groups on the spectrum to come forward and raise their voice. So those are if we get people to listen, okay, and take direction, 50% of our job will be done. Take direction from others, that their lived experiences, our lived experiences make us the experts on us. And that needs to be taken into account. I also think that we can pool our dollars better, and contribute that way. And because never think that the power of fundraising doesn't go far, because it definitely does. And then start to build in intersectionality at all levels in your organization. So, meaning that if you show up to a now meeting and there are no other intersectional identities or individuals there, that should be a problem. You should look around and say, we got to make some change here. So I'm often asked in my workshops going forward, how do we get more people to come, more women of color to join up? Well, you can't wait for them to come to you. You got to get in there and you got to go show up and recruit.
So happy and glad to be hearing from a woman such as yourself in a position such as the one that you're in, speaking about all of the things that need to be said relentlessly and without shame. And I know that that inspires a lot of women all around. So along with that, I wanted to ask, what would you say your proudest achievement as the president of California now is?
I think that one of the proudest things that we've accomplished so far, in addition to policy change, has been the recruitment of an intersectional board. I have an all-woman of color board in California, which is revolutionary for this organization. So strategically, that strategic planning that went into the fact to have the recruitment started off in about 2015. That was the year that we brought Kimberly Crenshaw to the NOW conference. Fun fact, y'all gonna get me talking today. Intersectionality was work to get into NOW bylaws. That didn't just get in there easily. That was some opposition there. Dr. Crenshaw had came to the conference, spoke, and when it got down to the bylaw changes, I want to say on Sunday of the conference, it was voted down. And I thought to myself, wait a minute, I'm in my chair. I can feel my chair. I can feel the floor. But they allowed Dr. Crenshaw to come and it didn't pass. It wasn't until the president at that time stood up and breaking protocol. She broke protocol because they don't vote, they facilitate, and said that if I was voting, I would vote to include intersectionality in the bylaws in 2015. And with a wave of her wand, bippity boppity boo, they all stood up and they voted it to pass. So what does that tell us? That tells us that when it comes from the author, literally the mother of intersectionality, it wasn't good enough for NOW's folks, but it took the president to kind of steward along. And so I'm asking each and every one of you to steward the message along. Use your privilege to get it done.
Goes to show exactly how much work needs to be done. So we've been talking about community building and building connections and including intersectionality into the work that every single work that we do. So along those lines, how, I guess from personal experience, how do you balance the aims of multiple team members who all kind of have different opinions and different ideas to bring to the table?
Another very good question. So I kind of adopted what I call the 3 C's. I try to move by consensus and lead with compassion, and above all, collaboration. That's one of my strongest gifts. If I had to say one, is to try to build consensus, move by consensus. So a lot of people now have a lot of different opinions on a lot of different issues. We can agree on some things, not agree on others, but you have to keep driving home the intersectional message. It is not easy. Oftentimes, these camps are divided on age and on race, so you really, really have to smooth those over. Also, you need to invite folks into a spirit of sisterhood and disagreement, and really allow them to kind of sit with that uncomfortability for a minute on why they're not getting on board. And then, as the great Loretta Ross talks about, to call them in, definitely to call them in. And this is how we're able to get anything done on these boards when people, now has a history of people just walking away from now. Some of the racial injustice concerns that have gone on, walking away, whole chapters closing down. We really need to call these folks back in. That we can disagree, but we have to be better feminists to each other. We have to respect each other. And also bring them back to our 6 core values. Depending on where the disagreement lies, especially when it comes to people's identity, their marginalization, they don't have the right to disagree. Sit with that. Sit with that just for a minute and let that soak in. And if I am your sister, I am a fellow Now member, we need to stand together, become our accompliceness, and also really lean in to a true spirit of allyship. And I'll talk more about that with teaching allyship later.
Last question that we have right now is, how do you see the future of Now's engagement with a younger and more diverse group of feminists?
Very similar to what I was talking about in terms of intersectionality. The youth have to be engaged, and Now members sit back and say, oh, okay, but they don't come to our meetings. Well, first of all, when they get there, are they working on your agenda or theirs? Are they supporting your agenda or are you supporting theirs? And this has got to be clarified, the goals. Of putting together your action items, agendas, even your meetings for the year. Is your message relevant? It really is a referendum on what we're doing currently, not somehow the lack of, I've actually had Now members in the many workshops that I've given to them talk about how the youth doesn't care. They're not, their issues, they're pretty complacent. They're not under as much duress as we were back in the day. So therefore, that's why they don't come. And what I'd like to see is a strategic plan going forward where every board and Now at the local and state levels has an officer that is a youth and a voting member of the Young Feminist Board. So they have task forces, but those task forces are not voting members of the actual board. So they don't make decisions. And they need to bring in youth consultants and have a member of the board, maybe 2 or 3, honestly. And once the youth are voting members, you're going to see a lot of change, just simple things. Young people, like I said, we don't worry about, will take them so long to kind of get to address the issues around all of our 6 core issues. A youth perspective is going to change everything. So that's what I'd like to see at all levels. And I'd also like to see us kind of model some of the other social justice organizations where we're really, really in the streets. So as issues come up, we're addressing them right then. Press release is not action. We have to get out there and take action like we used to.
Yeah, incredible. Yeah, I would really love to see more young people in these big organizations, because I feel like even myself looking at Now, I was very intimidated going in as like a college student, and it's really impressive because I know who I am. I know that I know a lot about these topics. I'm very confident in my knowledge, but yet something about being in a room, or I guess in a Zoom meeting with multiple people twice your age that have been there for a long time, that have a lot more authority over you, and also like socially and culturally have a lot more authority over you, it kind of dwindles your confidence. It kind of makes you question a lot about yourself and a lot about your capacity, and I think that could definitely be kind of put down, or like beaten down, by having more young people in there, because all of the people that are a part of these organizations were young people, and they were probably activists, or a lot of them were activists when they were younger. So
Absolutely.
I don't know why you wouldn't trust someone younger when you were in that position yourself, and how amazing would that have been if you had gotten so many opportunities as a young activist.
No, they needed to support you. and 100% get behind you. I hope they come up with a buddy system that as older feminists need to bring in one younger feminist that they're going to mentor and push and help elect them succeed. I'm so sorry, Ria. You want to say something?
I'm loving everything that you're saying. I just it's kind of different from what we've been talking about, but how like thinking about how the virtual environment has impacted people's access to these activist spaces. You know, for me, what I found, while everything that we've been saying is absolutely true, I find it so much less intimidating. You're just on a Zoom call, you know, you're not having to drive to somewhere and be in a isolated room. And I'm loving the way that I feel like even though the COVID-19 stuff is really bad in the way it's devastating communities, in the activist space, it seems to break down some of the walls that we've had for a long time.
Oh yeah, I would definitely agree. Um, So I'll tell you a little bit about how technology has impacted now. For many, many years, now's national conferences, which is the only time we're all together from different states, right? So we only get to see each other once a year. A lot of people don't really understand that. For state by state, we only get to see each other once a year. So depending on where that national conference is, and it rotates by district, um, some people may not even be able afford to be able to get to the national conference. So they may not be able to, if it's in Florida, coming from California, those tickets are steep. If it's in the Midwest, those tickets are steep. By having this ability to connect up via Zoom, I get to be with you guys in Maryland. I get to be with you guys absolutely. I think that it has brought about access at a whole new level. And I'm proud to say, very proud to say, that I led the state presidents and I'm in a movement to get the first virtual conference last year. So that was huge. It took a lot of push because feminists said they didn't want to be Zoom bombed. They were really afraid about men signing up for memberships, taking over now. It was a lot of things. And we were like, look, we'll do the research, a 5-point plan on how to put this together. Um, we don't believe that men are going to take over. It's actually going to give more access, not less. Also, some of our older senior feminists, some of them, just the access to be able, folks with disabilities to get to these conferences has been a lot. So having programs to teach them new technology has been just amazing, and they love it. Over 60, they love it. They love to be able to jump on a call with so many of their friends more often than once a year.
Yeah. And like talking about people, how like disabled people, how they're getting so much better access to whether it's school or activist spaces, it's just amazing. And it makes us wonder, like, this isn't too difficult to do. Why haven't we done this in the past? And now that we're being forced to, this is probably something we should keep in the future.
We're never going back. Yeah, we're never going back to the old way.
Yeah. I think we've wrapped up all the questions.
But Kolieka, if there's anything else you want to add on your part.
I guess I would just close by saying that to each and every one of you in the audience, that the youth need your support and allyship. Women of color need your support and allyship. Black women need your support and allyship. Indigenous need your support and allyship. If we want to make now all that it can be, it's going to start there. And I believe we can do it together.